Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Comics for All. Today is Wednesday, December 31st, the last stream of the year. Today we have on Ink and Inside Daniel. Daniel, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, you're a writer, creator, and we're going to talk all things that you get to do in the comics industry. But the first question we ask here on Comics for All, since we're a reader-centric channel, is what got you hooked into comics as a reader?
So it's a couple of things that get me to that. So my dad had like a collection of like old comics in a book, and I also grew up watching a lot of like Batman the Animated Series on syndication, and a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff on syndication, Superman the Animated Series, and so on and so forth. And then my dad found his old Silver Age comics from when he was a kid in my grandparents' house. They weren't in good condition then. They're not in good condition now at all because they were read a lot as a kid, like backwards and forwards. Then I would be reading on and off for years, and then in college we had a huge blizzard here in 2010, and I'm stuck inside. I figured out I need something to do. I discovered Comixology, and that got me back into comics, and I've been back ever since.
Love that. Shout out to Comixology, by the way. When at a point in your life did you realize that you actually wanted to realistically, write and create and actually be part of the comics community?
So I was writing. So shortly after that blizzard, I decided to write a Superman fan film. I was bored. It was winter break. I was stuck inside because of a blizzard.
Fair.
And that got me into a Batman script. And that got me doing fan scripts. And all along the line, someone said to me, Daniel, you really should do your own stuff instead of just writing fan script after fan script after fan script. And so I experimented with a few things. And one of the scripts, I teamed up with a friend, Andrew Hines, to co-write a superhero comic. And then at the same time, I was working on a project at the time called Modern Colossi. And we had brought this, Andrew and I brought this script, this other project potentially to a small publisher, which I don't think is extant anymore. And they turned to me and said, while we're waiting on that, Daniel, do you have anything else you could while we're waiting for this stuff to happen? I'm like, well, I have this script called Modern Colossi. It's, set in the Gilded Age. It's with a Jewish superhero. They're like, okay, it's everything. We love it. We hate the name. And I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to wrap my name, rattle my brain for that. I think I stammered out on Facebook Messenger, how about American Dreams? And they're like, that works, and that's how it got started.
Love it. And I got a copy of it, which, of course, another teaser. We'll be talking actually about it later.
Yeah.
But again, another reader-centric question. Since it's kind of the end of the year and everyone's doing their end of the year lists, didn't have to come out this year, but what's something you've read in 2025 that stood out to you? You can even highlight a couple titles if you wanted.
Well, I didn't have a chance to read as much because I worked so much. I'm like exhausted by the end of the week. But I did manage to read some stuff online, and I subscribed to the DC Universe Infinite app, which helps a lot. I read this digitally first, but I do have the physical copy still in the shrink wrap still, so I have to open it up. But I did read it digitally, but illegally.
Nice.
On the DC app. It is Batman First Night, with a great retelling of a Golden Age, like a reimagining of a Golden Age adventure by Jen Jurgens with Mike Perkins on art. It's Batman, it's period piece, it's got gangsters, it's got monster men, and it's a Jewish element to it. What's not to like?
Very much so. I can also give it a double thumbs up. It's incredibly good.
Yep.
So now going into kind of your craft process, your collaboration and building community. In terms of being a writer, can you walk us through your writing process from concept to actual printed page?
Well, it depends on the project. A lot of them I do think up myself, and I'll write out a script first, and I'll go looking for an artist. Other times I'll find an artist I really want to work with, and I'll say, okay, what do you like? And I can work around that and figure out how our interests can merge into a cool new script, which we'll explain later. We'll be with Knightwrath. Another thing for later. But it's very often first I write, then I find the artist I think will fit the art.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't find it, I will reach out to friends in the community, fellow writers, other artists, to see if they know someone who might be the perfect fit.
That makes sense. And then you have worked obviously with different artists and different publishers at this point. What are there certain criteria or certain things you're looking for in a collaborator? If you're looking for an artist or a letterer, or are there certain things you're looking for in people, or certain aspects of their skills you're looking for?
Well, first of all, I want to know if they're any good, so I do look at their past work.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the subset of that is, do they fit the project? Because like an artist could be great, but the tone of their art might not exactly match the tone I have in my own head.
Yes.
And then also, I like hearing from other people who might have worked in the past. Are they good? Are they issues? And I don't really get a feel for them that way.
Excellent. And then kind of going into the indie comics community, can you kind of share some experiences you've had where you've really either gained some good feedback from people, or you've gotten some really good feedback from a fan, or anything like of that nature? And how has kind of the indie comics community kind of shaped your career to this point?
Well, an early example would be my late editor, LaShawn Colvin, and I were on a podcast to promote American Dreams. And she told me, and she did this point blank on the podcast. She's like, Daniel, you have all these great characters, but you're saying it's something in New York, and you're looking at it as a diverse as could be. It's like I said on the air, instead of pushing back, I'm like, no, you're right. So I had Arc 2 American Dreams already planned out at the time. I tore that one up, wrote a whole new one, which is the one you started reading, of issue 6 of American Dreams that released this year, to add more diverse characters. So it would be, more diverse. And other times it could be like the other day, this new project I've been working on, I asked some friends in a creators group if they liked what they liked it, and they read it and they liked it. It gave me a couple of notes. I reincorporated the notes into a couple of other rewrites before I sent it to the artist I've been looking at to be the artist for it. And in fact, even after they saw it, I added 4 more pages.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. And then I showed that to my editor and a couple other people. They're like, yeah, that works.
And then kind of is what every creator or writer kind of falls into. How do you handle a creative setback? Like if you pitch something, someone doesn't like it, or you have maybe an argument, maybe not an argument, but a disagreement with a fellow creator, or you're, like you said, your script, or you have to redo it. How do you kind of handle those mentally, and how do you process that?
Well, it depends on the situation. In all honesty, like some moments I will I don't get a pitch doesn't get in. Of course, I'm going to stew for a day or two in a little bit of self-pity.
Right.
But like I said in one of my Substacks from a couple years ago, when I had a really poor showing at Baltimore Comic Con, I basically left the show early because I was doing so poorly that year. And then I sat and stewed for a couple hours. And like, you know what? Gotta put on my big boy pants and get on the horse again.
Absolutely.
Now, for creative disagreements, it's going to be push and pull no matter what. Like, if I write something full script, I'm going to have to be a little more pushy about the full script. But then every so often, artists will say, hey, this works, but I'm going to adjust it a little way. If that's fine with you. And they'll show me the layout. I'm like, that's perfect. That's actually better than what I had in mind. Let's go with that. So
Excellent.
You have to be flexible in disagreements creatively. Yes, you can push. It's your vision. If you're a writer, you have to push your vision, but take good feedback.
Right.
And if you have a disappointment, like a pitch doesn't go through, okay, it's fine to stew for a day or two, but just don't be like, ugh, for like a whole week.
Can you share a piece of advice that someone has shared with you that's really stuck with you throughout your career so far?
I'm trying to think. It's probably been so much advice over the years. I think that's a recurring thing from a bunch of people is you just got to keep going.
Yep.
One foot on the other. I've heard that from several people. Like sometimes I'd be like frustrated and like, no, you got to keep going and keep moving. Otherwise you're in the water.
Right. You got to have that momentum and keep, especially for your audience. So now it's time to dive into some of your titles. We're going to first dive into, there it goes, Knightwrath.
Which was the second comic I really came out with after American Dreams.
Perfect. Yeah. So in this title, it feels like it has a darker, kind of a horror-inspired tone, especially from the cover. Where did the concept for Joe Sutton come from?
So Joseph or Knightwrath, the big purple rage monster you see on the screen. So I first saw Esquivel's art on Twitter, and I reached out to him and said, "Hey, do you want to work on something?" He said, "Sure." And I said, I said to him point blank, I don't have anything on mind, but let's put our heads together and think of something." And we went back and forth. And I said, I like his art. I said, it's very 90s inspired. Let's do something like 90s ish.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's like not necessarily, completely 90s extreme, but something very influenced by that. And he said, I might have an idea. And like a few hours later, he came with a sketch, which ultimately is Knightwrath.
Love that.
And it was basically, the sketch is basically unchanged. The concept is basically unchanged from what his concept art to what you see on the page.
I was going to ask, how long of a time period was it from kind of like idea in your head to actually seeing it in print?
It took a while because we had to get a team together, and everyone has to get paid. Like Esquivel was generous enough to say, "I'll be paid out of the Kickstarter," which sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the person. And it depends on the deal you make with your artist. So don't always assume you can pay through the Kickstarter. Sometimes so that was the inker and the colorist and the letterer all paid out of my pocket.
Right.
And that took a while. So from concept so it took maybe a year-ish because we started in the pandemic, I think around 2020, and we're all stuck at home with nothing to do. 2021 is, I think, when we had this on Kickstarter. So yeah, it was about a year.
Okay. Especially when you're writing a story like this, how do you balance kind of the action scenes that people, obviously want, but you also want some emotional depth to the characters? How do you kind of balance those two things when you're writing?
So this was a special case because I decided to write it, what I like to call quasi Marvel style, which I normally don't do. I usually do full script.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make, because Esco is my co-creator on Knightwrath. I'm like, so I said to him, Gabe, he's Gabe. I'm going to do basically I'm going to do quasi Marvel style. I'm going to do a page by page by page by page breakdown. I'm not going to do page panel script. But I'm going to give you flexibility. Like I have an idea of what I have in my head of how I want things to be. But this way, it's flexible enough that we both have a say. And he basically got what I had in my head down, and then I went back in and I added the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, matching the dialogue to match the feel and the beats and everything. So I knew with Joe, it had to be appropriately moody. Knightwrath has to be appropriately brash.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And then if you actually, especially when you write, do you actually have ideas like how this potentially could be adapted into, say, film, animation, or, an undertone of, an audiobook? Do you have those kind of undertones and things when you're writing it out?
Not during the process, but it's always, once it's done, it's always in the back of the head. It's like, how would this look if adapted into another medium?
Mm-hmm.
Which, isn't the reason why I do this, but it's like it'll be the nice, happy prize at the end of the day. Like, personally, I would love to see it like anything in the Libertyverse stuff. So that's American Dreams, Knightwrath, Rook and Knight, anything else like could kind of cook up in that corner of the universe of the hero universe. I'd love to see a live action. I don't know if it's a film or is it a miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
Like American Dreams probably has more meat on it to have more for a miniseries. Knightwrath, I can definitely see as a nice, really cool film.
So then let's dive into.
I mean, that's live action. It's live action with a good director.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, obviously you have to be CGI for the creature, the character, the hero form.
Right.
I would love to see more, practical sets if possible. I'm like one of those people who's like, I'm tired of green screen everything. Put in some physical stuff on. Like even if you're filming a green screen or the volume, whatever it's called, build enough practical stuff.
Yes, people like practical effects.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not asking for I'm not saying, just go for Lou Ferrigno Hulk here. I mean, yes, CGI monsters thing, but have some practical way to make these things look realistic. That was just a bunch of CGI, everything down to the last blade of grass.
That's right. All right. So now we get to delve into another title that you've got to work on. Sherlock Holmes and the Phantom Masquerade, which is really exciting. I have a copy myself here. Let me pull it out.
You got the shiny
I got
copy.
one of the holofoil. Yeah, pretty shiny about that. So in
Yeah,
this one, it's obviously it's the concept of Sherlock Holmes meets the Phantom of the Opera, and I found it brilliant. As soon as I saw this, I was like, why has no one done this before? How did you
well, let's just
how did you
say,
come with that crossover?
well, people usually do have done Sherlock Holmes before in usually in prose novels, but sometimes comics. But it's just really just taking Sherlock Holmes, dropping into Phantom of the Opera.
Yep.
So my thought process was, I'm not going to do that. It's been done by better writers than I have in prose form. But I thought the novel, not the musical, but the novel is public domain, so I can basically do it as a sequel to the novel.
Aha.
So that's step number one. Step number two, gotta figure out how Sherlock and the Phantom have a conflict. So I came up with the idea of, well, a lot of people do like the idea of Ron Christine having a son. Others think it's someone else's son. I'm not going to go into. I've had to rant about Love Never Dies before. I'm not going to try to risk the wrath of Sir Lloyd Webber on this one. But like, so there's some of your conflict right there with between Holmes and the Phantom. And it's just two characters I've loved since I was a kid.
Absolutely.
I love the Holmes stories. I love Family Opera. In fact, I probably heard the original Broadway cast in utero, according to Family Legend. Long story. But it's just it's like one of those things where it's like it just works to get. It's like because it's great detective, one of the greatest monsters of Gothic horror.
That's right.
And people don't seem to always get that the Phantom is not a good person. We can empathize with him. He's not a good person. He's a monster.
And then who did the cover art on this particular cover?
This one right here, that was Jeremiah Shake, the interior artist. And Warnia Sadeo is our interior colorist, also did the colors. And then we go with the more simplistic, mood colors in the interiors.
So, and kind of like you mentioned, and especially these two respected, classic characters, how did you, respect that, but also kind of make the story your own at the same time? How did you kind of approach that?
So, first of all, a little Phantom goes a long way, as you know from reading the story.
Yes.
Like, it works. So, I can't have him just overbearing pop up here and there randomly. It has to work. But you have to go back to the books or the stories in the case of Sherlock. We have to go back to the book to kind of get an idea of how Christine and Raoul should sound, even though they're like 10 years older at this point, so they're in their 30s versus like the 20s they should be in the novel. But Sherlock is kind of easy because there's so much pastiche out there, as well as the original story, so you can get the right tone pretty well. But I had to basically said to myself, I have to go back to the tone of the original Doyle stories. So I can't just be like, which means I'm not going to do like BBC Sherlock, where he's the high-functioning sociopath. Holmes may be a little unsociable, but he's not a sociopath.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He has a very kind of dry sense of humor sometimes, as you see in here. But he also has his own demons, and I decided this has to be set after the last problem. So Moriarty is dead. This is 6 months after Holmes has returned. So this is the 6 months after the adventure of the empty house. So what's some of the consequences of him coming back? Well, he might be back on the drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be struggling with that as well. And it's not just so the Phantom is not the only ghost you might see. So that's why you see the hallucinations of Moriarty tormenting him.
Got it. And then were there any favorite moments or surprises kind of in the creation or the collaboration process, and kind of something that took you by surprise when you're like, wow, I didn't think it was going to come out like this, or just kind of took you a different way than you initially expected?
I think it actually was the Moriarty page, because I had told Warnia, okay, we have to start using, because Joey Galvez, who was my production person on this, said we should do simple colors. So originally I wanted it to be black and white. And he said, let's just do simple colors. I think he's he used the comic Blue Book by Tinian
Yes.
as an example of simple coloring. I said, okay, we'll do that, but I still warn you after a bit. Okay, for certain things like change certain moods or certain clues, we should highlight those moods. And then she brought, and so Jeremiah did this really scary page of the ghost of Moriarty, the drug-induced hallucination, kind of coming at Holmes, and Holmes is freaking the hell out. Really scary page by Jeremiah. Warnia's colors made it even more scary and more intense. And it's very simple coloring. If you look at the comic, it's like reds and blues and little greens, but it works to great effect.
Mm-hmm. It really does.
Yeah.
All right. So, the granddaddy of them all, as we like to say, American Dreams. This is, I'd say, probably your main title at this point. But it weaves kind of turn of the century New York with superhero fiction. What was the spark that kind of made you combine those two things together? Because I don't think I've seen too much of that.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. One, I wanted more Jewish representation in comics. One of my ongoing things. That's why I just did Chutzpah, which you just did talk about with Sasha a little while ago. Yep. I wanted more Jewish representation. So one day I'm listening to this is the lead up to what was described as Modern Goliath, which became American Dreams. So I'm at home one day. I'm listening to the original cast recording of the show Ragtime, which also was a great novel by Ella Doctorow. But there's a Broadway show about it. There's a great revival of it right now at Lincoln Center. Go see it before it goes. Because I saw it at City Center before it moved to Broadway, but nonetheless. So I kind of doze, and it's the kind of like the symphonic suite bonus track they have at the end of the album.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going, I wonder what it would have been like if there were superheroes in the Gilded Age, because most superhero stories, like the aforementioned First Knight, takes place in very much 1930s World War II era.
Right.
There's not many that go backwards towards like the turn of the 20th century. And that's when the first light bulb went up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you, Dr. O and Aaron and Flannery. But then I figured, okay, so how am I going to do this? So I said, okay, it has to be a Jewish character. It has to be an immigrant. This was 2016. An election was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely some of that was echoing in my own writing. With me saying, okay, we need to make it a Jewish immigrant because he would have been like bottom of society's, ladder. And then some of the pieces started coming there. It's like, okay, I need historical figures. So like Ragtime, I pulled out Houdini and Emma Goldman because I just thought they would be great characters to use.
Yeah.
I brought out J.P. Morgan and Thomas Edison because I thought there would be great as opposition. And then as I was writing later issues, I'm like, I need a bigger villain than just Edison and J.P. Morgan. And my brain went young Aleister Crowley.
There you
go. Who I shall say is always a delight to write because he says the worst, horrible things, and he does it with such glee. Like, there's stuff in Arc 2 that obviously hasn't seen the light of day because we just started issue 6, which is the first issue of the second arc. You think he's bad in issue 4. He is nasty towards the end, going through the end of volume 2. So basically all these things put together, I had to figure out, eventually as I was writing, can I really want this to be like a big story? And then I had been told, no, you have to shrink it down. No, more. Nope, more. So what we'll do is that would be this big epic. And I shrunk down to a 5-issue first arc. Originally it was going to be, I was told before, I'm like, give me 5. So I had to figure out, I need a good big fight baddie. And that's how I came up with the idea of Amalek, which from biblical tradition is a person who's basically refers himself as an enemy of Jews. So this is an anti-Semitic, ironically another immigrant or descendant of immigrants who's an anti-Semite, and that they're opposing forces of similar physical strengths are coming at each other. One represents the best American could be, liberty, the guy you can see on the screen, our Jewish immigrant, and the worst American could be, which is this nasty bigoted force who thinks America should be closed off to everyone.
That's a rather important theme today as well.
Yep. It's really because I was writing volume 2, and I'm like, so I was writing volume 1, I was writing in the time of the 2016 election and the first Trump administration, and I'm like, oh my God, did I like somehow channel all that into the book? And then of course I'm writing volume 2 during the Biden administration, and it's suddenly all relevant again. And I'm like, oh God, did I suddenly predict something? like somehow sense a shift was going to happen, I need to call out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite part of discovering, or researching this time period? The Gilded Age, like you said, there's not a lot of comics set in that time period. Has there been anything that's kind of taken you by surprise in researching that era?
Actually, it was something that Dodie, my artist, Dodie Eka, and I had, it was, I think, in issue 3 of American Dreams, I said, at one point, he gave Houdini a microphone for like his stage thing. It was like, like an old style radio thing with the round and the kind of circles within it. I'm like, Dodie, they wouldn't have had microphones in 1900. And then I looked it up, and to my shock, there were microphones, just for like little tiny things that weren't very useful. And earlier this time, I said when Dodie first drew a cover, which I then nixed, like for the earlier editions of American Dreams, Island, Dodie, there were no cars in 1900 like that, or like did not produce. And then I was doing some extra research on Houdini, and lo and behold, there's a picture of Houdini in 1900 driving a car.
Oh wow!
So I put this story. I'm like, I'm gonna put Houdini in a car later in the first volume, which I did. Because you obviously read the book, and I made the joke of our high flying superhero getting car sick.
Love that. And then you touched on this question a little bit already, but how does working on American Dreams reflect your own experiences with identity and history?
Well, being a Jewish New Yorker, it's very much me going to some like my community's situation, going back 100 something years, 125 years, and even longer, because there's been a Jewish population in New York since the Dutch have been around. And even that was fraught because the original governor of New York, the New Amsterdam, Peter Stuyvesant, was an anti-Semitic SOB who wanted to prevent Jews from even living in New York, New Amsterdam, and had to be overruled by his superiors in Amsterdam to let them in. And that led to, after that, because they were originally Jews from technically Spain and Portugal, the Sephardic Jews, they then had, and it becomes an interesting game of who the old looks out on the new. So the Sephardim, Spanish and Portuguese Jewish population, becomes the dominant force in New York Jewish culture. Then the first wave of German Jews show up. The Sephardim look down on them. But then the German Jews start, becoming a little more mainstream. And then, of course, during the late 19th, early 20th century, it's the big wave of Eastern European Jews, my ancestors, who emigrate to escape the pogroms and everything in the Russian Empire and elsewhere. Yep. And then both the Sephardim and the German Jews look down on the Eastern European Jews. But also it looks at the New York and America as a microcosm because, I place, for example, the Gold family tenement basically where the tenement museum is today, and there is a record of a Jewish family living in that tenement.
Right.
The big fight in issues 4 and 5 American Dreams starts in front of the Eldridge Street Synagogue, which is a historic synagogue and museum in Lower East Side, and so on and so on and so forth. So it's just a lot of New York Jewish culture definitely woven into it. And of course, we have one of our greatest New York Jewish heroes of all time, Harry Houdini, as a major supporting character.
Fantastic. So this kind of takes us to our closing section, which we still got plenty of time. But How do you engage with readers online or at conventions? And has there been any really memorable, any fan interactions that have really stuck with you?
Hmm. It's just nice to have people come out and say I like the book. That's always good. But every so often you get it. Someone's like comes in and like, I did not know I needed this, and they just love it. So then I have to hear. There's been some negative ones. I won't go into, but it's always interesting sometimes to see what book works and what book is to have people do a visceral reaction. Unfortunately, we live in an era of massive anti-Semitism, so if the word Jew is uttered, unfortunately, there's going to be an issue. Some people are going to react poorly to that. But then you have, the other hand, you have people who come in and like, oh my God, I needed, as a Jewish person, I needed this book. So it evens out. On conventions is always, I use social media all the time. No, not as much as I used to. I had to go cold turkey for a little bit, or at least reduce my use. But conventions, when I finally get to do them, it's always fun because you can see people look at the books, love the books, come back for more.
Yep.
No, one of my favorite interactions, not my book, but a friend's book, Cat Calamia. I forget which book of hers it was. I think it might have been, it was like her Like Father, Like Daughter book. I was at a convention with her, and someone bought a couple of the books, came back 30 minutes later. She's like, I love the books, but I hate you because I want more.
Yeah.
But it's like that's one of the best. Not for my book. It's like one of the best reactions I ever saw anyone ever have to a comic.
Love that. For 2026, obviously, since we're only a day away, but are there some hints or some teases of things that are in the wheelhouse for you in 2026 that you can share with the viewers?
Well, I made some teases. I also just I did that thing on the beat where they asked people for what they have planned, and I said everything's in flux. So, because I will say for definite, I am planning more American Dreams. Yes. I have a 2-issue Kickstarter, which will be us halfway or 3/5 through the second arc. There's other plans I might want to do with American Dreams. I'm hoping to get Knightwrath 2 done finally. It's all penciled. It's all inked. It just needs to be colored and lettered and covered. So soon, I hope. And 3's already been. It's almost fully penciled. So
fantastic.
Yeah, that's our big fight issue. So that's an extra long 3rd issue. Then they'll end with a coda 4th issue. We want to do that. I know the Chutzpah team wants to do another Chutzpah anthology.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
And I'm going to try to pitch things around like this new project I'm working on, which I've been hinting at. It's a comedy action book about a studio fixer who gets wrapped up in a star's gambling debt issue.
Uh-huh.
Hijinks, of course, ensue. And I just wrote the first issue of that, and I have an artist looking at the script now.
I was going to say, do you know what your first convention in 2026 is going to be?
I do. I actually know what 4 of them are going to be.
Oh, there we go. Can you share any of those?
I will be at Super Jersey Comic Expo, which just had to move locations, but it's now closer to me than it was. It was closer to Six Flags in New Jersey. Now it's a little further north up, so it's easier for me to get to. Then that's in April. Then in June, it's going to be Garden State Comic Fest. In July, I'm not tabling, but I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time.
Yes. Hoping to see you there.
Hoping to see you too. I think we're discussing a couple ideas, see what I can do there. Hopefully I can go all 4 days because, that Sunday I should fly back to here. Just red eyes.
Yep.
But I'm not tabling. I'm just walking around as a pro and I have friends coming along with me for the ride. So this is going to be
super
great.
Smart.
In August, I'm doing Fan Expo Boston. That I've been trying to do for a number of years. I get in, and then something happens, and every time I've done a Fan Expo show, something happens where I have to just drop out last second. I was supposed to do Fan Expo Philadelphia last year, and I had to drop out last second because a family event occurred, my cousin's bar mitzvah. So I'm like, okay, that's a
important event.
Yeah, very important event. And then then when we rescheduled to another show, which was CradleCon last year at the Creative Aviation Museum out on Long Island. But I'm not doing it this year because Well, I had plans for another trip, and it was not work for that trip, but it ended up being dropped anyways. Then in September, I'm doing Baltimore, which is always one of my favorite shows. I missed it this year because I went on vacation.
Yep.
And then we'll be New York Comic Con. Now, I have not know if I'm going to table there yet. I won't because I don't know until I apply and then to get back to me. I have struck out so many times. But also last year was my first time getting a pro pass in like 3 years, so who knows?
Yeah, hard telling what their pro process.
Yeah, pro pass is easier to get than a table.
Fair.
Yeah.
So Daniel, where can people find you and your titles online?
Well, you can find me at danielkalban.com, which also has a link to my link tree with all relevant socials and whatnot. You can find American Dreams at Global Comics under the Band of Bards profile. You can find everything else I run, like Knightwrath, Sherlock Holmes, Phantom Masquerade, and Broken Knight, under my own profile at Daniel Kalban Global Comics. And then I'm working on more of a physical storefront, but that might take a while.
Perfect.
And of course, I'm also part of Summit Comics now.
Yes.
Which, this little upstart that now seems to caught everyone's attention. And we haven't put on a book yet, but we have our sneak peek right now in the Summit Comics store. That's summ.it. Or no, it's readsum.it.
Yes.
But we have our first Kickstarter for that soon, which includes my boy Vesper, or my little, anti-hero, Red Hood, Winter Soldier, James Bond-esque character.
Right. And if you want to put me in touch with anyone from Summit, I can help promote that Kickstarter.
Will do. We'll talk to them later. Because everyone's getting ready for New Year's Eve.
Oh, I'm sure.
And then, of course, right now I'm part of another anthology, Orange Cone Productions Holiday Spirits, where I'm doing another Phantom of the Opera story with Brian Wolf. So it's a little 4-pager that connects to the original novel and is how the Phantom likes to terrorize people at Christmas.
Who doesn't want to know that?
Christine.
All right. Well, my last question is kind of an oddball question, but do you have a favorite snack or meal as a go-to when you need to sit down and like concentrate on stuff for a couple hours?
Oh God, because I usually work in my room on my top of my bed, like face down, work like this. So I don't like to have, obviously eat in bed.
Right.
But every so often I do like getting like a bowl of like something like Ritz crackers or plain pita chips or something. That's something I can just nibble on in case I get hungry. And then just
Excellent.
water, usually, just because I'm trying to lose a little weight. Not that's helping. Work. I'm like, yay. No, but like I just like having like a little something to nosh on, maybe to eat carefully as I'm writing, but nothing like too much.
Fantastic.
And then I just have some music in the background that fits the script being written.
Always helps the mental spaces having some music going.
Yeah, I've been listening for this new project. I've been listening to a instrumental of Another Day of Sun from La La Land, but it's done by a German orchestra. So it's a regular orchestra. It happens to be based in Germany. But
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like it's an pa version of Another Day of Sun.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you may probably have plans for tonight as well, so I hope you get to enjoy your evening.
I'm staying home. I'm not going to Times Square. Like, it's funny because the HR person said to me, "Oh, Daniel, you're going to go to." You seem like the kind of person to go to Times Square for New Year's Eve. I'm like, "Oh no, you couldn't pay me to do that. No, never in 1,000 years. No, I'm staying home. I might write tonight. I don't know yet. I'm just going to keep it nice and relaxed."
Understood. Well, thanks for coming on to the Ink and Insight part of Comics for All. Again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And everybody out there, I hope you have a great 2026. And thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. All right.